Bismillah, Assalamu alaikum. In today's video, I'll be refuting yet another argument made against Hadith preservation. This will be a really interesting one. This is about oral tradition. Let's get started. So, here's the basic contention. Journal studies on oral tradition have shown it to be very unreliable. A lot of early transmission of Hadith took place by oral tradition, hence, Hadiths are unreliable. Apparently, these morons have even shown that mutawatir hadiths are unreliable. Let's get started. So, here's the basic refutation. While oral tradition can be a problem in some journal cases, right? Or it is generally an issue, that does not mean it is always an issue. And I'll just give a very simple example for this. Arabic poetry was mainly transmitted for centuries by oral tradition, and it can be easily proven to be preserved. I just made a video on this point and why this actually proves Hadith preservation. More than that, memorization of the Quran shows that oral tradition contention cannot always work. Of course, Quran is different from a Hadith in the fact that memorizing it is much easier, but this example just shows that this is not a be all and end all argument, because they are clear cut counter arguments to the oral tradition contention. More than that, since we are talking about memorization of a hadith, we have scholars right now and throughout 1400 years of Islamic history that have been memorizing a hadith. So, this is not something that is a magical or unusual thing. This has been happening for 1400 years. Scholars have been memorizing a hadith, so this is something that is clearly possible. There is no way around this, and if mass memorization is possible with regards to a hadith, then the oral tradition contention is worthless. More than that, so I think these points, three points, are sufficient to refute the oral tradition contention. But I'll quote a reference from a historian in this regard, and this will give even more examples regarding oral tradition, or that in some cases it actually is reliable, and this will be really interesting. Let's get started on the reference. This is talking about the oral tradition and how Orientalists use it against Muslims. The key rationale inherent in such a view is that the typical person in our current era cannot remember 5 words in sequence, let alone 5 sentences or a few paragraphs strung together. However, this does not mean others in a previous era, devoid of television, radio, recorded music, and speeches, and inundated with the written word, could not do this. I mean, the logic is clear cut. Put more directly, just because North, who was the moron who was making the contention, could not memorize the majority of what a person said, does not mean a Bedouin tribesman in Arabia in the 7th century could not. I mean, the logic is clear cut, it's not something complicated he's saying here. A few examples will suffice to demonstrate this point. All of us remember the little exercise done by our teachers in elementary school, where the instructor would whisper a fairly long and complicated story into the ear of one student, who would then pass the story down at the end of the line. We would all listen in amazement at how garbled the story had become. Proof positive that oral tradition is a poor means to communicate anything factual. But not so fast. First, the story was only uttered once by the teacher, with the expectation that an 8-year-old child should memorize it out of hand. The catch here is that a typical child of today is not disciplined enough for initial lengthy memorization. The second problem with this method is that in almost all oral traditions, the stories were recited repetitively, a form of rote drill that achieves the same objective of rote drill in memorizing mathematical formula. Demonstrative of this are two famous individuals from the days of World War II, George S. Patton Jr. and Erwin Rommel. As a child, Patton was read to constantly, and he absorbed the material he read repetitively until he could recite entire chapters of the Bible and classical writers by heart. In a similar fashion but in a different subject, Erwin Rommel memorized the entire logarithmic table, allowing him the ability to perform critical calculations without notes. People can memorize lengthy amount of material if they have developed the disciplined mind to do so and if they hear the material repetitively. Ross Rogers, The Generalship of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, page 9 and 10. So, the point he's making is clear cut, right? This is not something complicated. First of all, the contention is grossly exaggerated, and there are counterexamples not just from Islamic history, but from Islamic history we can show the reliability of Arab oral tradition and the fact that ahadith have been memorized for basically 1400 years throughout. So we have example evidence of people doing it again and again. So I think all of this is enough to bury this contention once and for all. By the way, if you are interested in what these morons try to claim about mutawatir hadith, go watch my video on that topic. Seriously, you will be surprised how pathetic and desperate their attempt was at refuting mutawatir hadith. Inshallah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Inshallah, I'll keep refuting these grounds till next time. Assalamu alaikum.